The Bridge Club is the first video-based community that was created to inspire and connect professionals in just 25 minutes. Raise your hand, Catherine. Catherine Haskins and I are the founders of the Bridge Club, and we founded this as kind of a TED Talks meets LinkedIn meets book club type of place to come and to connect and to learn and to grow together. So you'll see a wide variety of topics presented by the Bridge Club. Some will be very business-like, some will be very personal. Others will talk about things going on in the world. So we encourage you to follow us on Facebook and to also watch as our Bridge Club is launched next week. Our website is launched next week to watch for events that will be coming up in the future. So a little bit of background and some housekeeping before we kick off with Stacy. So this conversation is being recorded. And we do that so that all attendees can get a copy of the recording after the fact if you want to listen to something again or share it with someone who was unable to attend. So you will receive that after the event is over. You will also be receiving all of Stacy's answers to your questions. So if we're not able to get to all of your questions within the 25 to 30 minutes we have allotted here, rest assured that Stacy will be answering them and you'll be provided each of those as a follow-up as well. So as we mentioned, we had the audio muted and then we unmuted it. Thank you for muting yourself again as we get into the conversation here. And then we will give you the signal to unmute after we begin the discussion. All right? So you also will note that we are doing this via video. And there's a good reason for that. 93% of all human communication is nonverbal. So when we do teleconferences where we can't see each other or connect via text or online, you miss a great part of that human interaction that is so important to good communication. So we want to see you. We want to see your faces. We want you to see us and see people's interactions with each other. So that's a big part of what our platform is all about. So thank you for turning on your cameras. I think it looks like everybody has their camera on. I'm like thrilled with that. Thank you very much. As Catherine mentioned earlier, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you can go to what's called the gallery view. And if you do that, you will see everybody kind of in a little montage on your screen. And then you will see the screen of the person speaking highlighted. So it's a really great way to engage with other people, particularly during the discussion part of the session. So last thing before I introduce Stacy is to grab your beverage. We start every Bridge Club session with a toast.
There we go.
The toast today, Stacy Pursell. Is the vet recruiter. Stacy has 20 plus years of experience in high level executive recruiting with Fortune 500 companies, big packaged goods companies, and animal health. So Catherine and I are just thrilled with so many of the things she has to say. And Stacy, we're happy to introduce you here today to everyone else. So take it away.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone, fellow Bridge Club members. And thank you, Brenda and Catherine, for letting me be the host today. I've got my mug here. This is a mug from my daughter. It's Disney meets animal print. So I'm a big Disney fan and a big animal print fan. So toasting today to new beginnings. We're in January, so we're still in the new year. And by the way, the first of the year is a really popular time for people to consider other opportunities in their career. I was reading yesterday that around your birthday, after a family reunion, the beginning of the year, these are some of the most popular times for people to think about their career. So let's toast to new beginnings and lots of opportunities for all of us this year.
Cheers.
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 So when we were coming on today, by the way, I like all the videos. I feel like I'm in the Hollywood Squares TV show. But when you were coming on, you probably heard the song from The Clash, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And we thought that song was very relevant it's a question that people struggle with on a daily basis in this country. Should I stay or should I go? And stay with my current employer or leave and go seek out opportunities somewhere else. In fact, some people on this call today, you might be asking yourself that question. This is a gold watch that this gold watch belonged to my husband's grandfather, and he worked his entire career for one company. He worked at the railroad, and after he worked his entire career at the railroad, he retired, and they gave him that gold watch. And that's just not how things are today. Most people do not stay their entire career with one company. In fact, the average person in the United States changes their job every 3 to 5 years. And the millennial generation, the younger people, they're changing their jobs on average every 18 months to 2 years. And, right now, the economy is good. We've never seen this many, opportunities. And think about the history of the world. I mean, right now in the world we live in, there are more opportunities for all of us if we just look for them. So when I started out my career in executive search and recruiting more than 20 years ago, it was considered taboo for people to change their jobs frequently. Employers did not want to interview or hire people that were considered a job hopper. And, today it's different. In fact, we have clients that if a candidate has worked for the same company their entire career, or been with the same company for 15 or 17 or 20 years, they are considered risk adverse, old fashioned. They're somebody that doesn't have enough experience working for enough companies. So we actually have companies that don't want to interview people unless they've worked for multiple companies. So in my search practice over the years, I've learned that there are two kinds of people. There are people who are open to opportunities, and then there are people who are closed to opportunities. And the most successful people, as you look up the corporate ladder, the people that are in these top roles, these are people that have been open to opportunities throughout their career. And JobBite, which is a recruiting software provider, they did a study that said 50% of people are open to considering other opportunities, even if they have a good job and they're happy where they are right now. So today I'm going to talk about the importance of considering other job opportunities. And you can consider other job opportunities for yourself, both within your current organization and also with other organizations. But the point is that you want to create options for yourself, and the more opportunities that you consider, the more options that you have. So I recommend that everybody stays open to opportunities. And unfortunately, the human brain has been programmed to say no sometimes before we even know what we're saying no to. And when I reach out to people and ask them, are you open to opportunity, I've learned that the most successful people are the people who keep their ear to the ground and stay open. So all you have to do is hear about the opportunity. You can listen to it if it's not better than what you've got right now. An option is to stay where you are with your current employer and not make a move. Or you can consider the opportunity and decide that you do want to make a move because it is better than what you have right now. But the point is not to say no unless you know what you're saying no to, because if you say no before you hear about it, then you might be closing the door on something that could actually be better and allow you for more career growth than where you are right now. The best time to look for another employment opportunity is when you have a good job right now, because you create leverage for yourself in that situation. The worst time to look for another position is when you've just found out that you're losing your job, because in that situation, you don't have any leverage. So when you find yourself unemployed, you really don't have as many options as if you are employed, and then hi, Jeff.
Thanks, Stacy.
Good to see you. So some of the reasons, what are some of the reasons why people leave their job? Well, the number one reason why people leave their job is for a better opportunity. If something better comes along, then why would we not be open to that? And specifically, reasons why people do leave their job. One reason is because the work is not meaningful. It's just a job and it's not meaningful work. Another reason people leave their job is because they don't feel valued or recognized for their contributions. A third reason is there are limited growth opportunities for advancement within their current organization. A fourth reason is philosophical differences. Their values just don't line up with where the company is headed and with their values. And a fifth reason is they leave for better compensation and benefits, but compensation is not the number one reason why people leave their job. A sixth reason is better work-life balance, and that's something that many people are looking for right now. Sometimes it's family needs to relocate. Maybe a spouse has gotten a job in another part of the country, so they need to move with a spouse or another reason and look for new opportunities in a different geographic region. Another reason people change their jobs is just not enough training or development or unrealistic goals at the company. And then the ninth reason is their boss. And this is one of the most common reasons people join. When they join companies, they're joining organizations because of their boss, their immediate supervisor. And they often leave companies because of their immediate supervisor. So that's one of the more popular reasons that people leave is because their direct supervisor. Some of the reasons that people choose to stay in their current organization is the work is meaningful to them. It's not just a job, but they're very passionate about what they're doing. A second reason is recognition. They feel that their work is valued and they're a good contributor to the company. And a third reason is growth opportunities. They see a path forward that lines up with their career goals and what they want. Another reason people stay is adequate compensation and benefits. They feel that they're being compensated fairly. And then strong team relationships. This is a big one. They feel connected to the people that they're working with, and then a good relationship with their boss. But before you can consider your options, you need to evaluate where you are right now in your career. And 5 of the factors to consider, one is opportunity for advancement. 2, passion for what you're doing. Are you passionate about the work? Do you enjoy what you're doing? A third reason is company culture. Is it a good fit? Do you like where you're working and the people that you're working with? A fourth reason is vision. Is where the company headed, does that line up with where you want to go and the values there? And then a work-life balance. This is very important for people, as I mentioned. And a recent job bite survey said that 38% of people consider work-life balance when deciding to stay and go. And in my search practice, we are hearing that so often right now, especially from the millennial generation. They're looking for that work-life balance. So a lot of people are just looking for those flexible work arrangements. But there are two big things to consider, 2 rules when it comes to options. Number one, you want to create as many options for yourself as possible, whether that be inside your current organization or outside of the company. And then you want to explore those options and create those options while you're gainfully employed. Because like I said before, that's the best time to look at your options is when you're employed, not when you don't have a job. So I have the dig your well before you're thirsty philosophy. In order to make good decisions and enjoy success in your career, you need to have leverage. And when you have leverage, you move from a position of strength rather than from a position of weakness. And when you're employed, you have more options, including to stay and explore opportunities within your current company. When you're looking at evaluating your options, there are 4 things that you need to consider. One is salary and benefits. Is it adequate, or do you need to look for opportunities elsewhere for better compensation and benefits? The second reason is title. Title is important to some people. It's not to other people, but are you moving up? Are you moving down? Is it a lateral move? And then your decision-making opportunities. How much freedom do you have in your current position to make decisions? And then the fourth thing is the distance to the job. How far are you going to have to commute, or am I going to have to relocate? So to sum things up, there are 2 things that are very important. The first thing is you need to know what you want and what's most important to you in your career. And the second thing is you need to be open to opportunity and create as many options for you as you navigate your career. And I think now we're going to open up the floor for questions, because in the Bridge Club, we always keep the talk to 10 minutes. And then we turn it over to you so that you can ask questions. So feel free to type in your questions in the chat box. Catherine, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
I muted myself because I took a picture. Sorry.
There you are.
So one of the questions that came through that was interesting had to do with values. You mentioned the values piece. And, I'm a Gen Xer, so I am kind of curious as the generations have progressed, value seems to have risen to the top more as a prominent piece. When did that start happening?
So that started happening with the millennial generation. The current generation, it's more important to them. They want to be in an organization where they share the same values and mission, and they want to feel very, passionate about. They're focused on. They want to make a difference in the world. They have more of a global perspective, I think. They want to give back and do something that's benefiting society and making a difference. It's not as much about them and their compensation, but they want to do meaningful work, and they want to do the work with people that they enjoy working with. So, it's a recent thing with the millennial generation.
That's very, very interesting.
Stacy, too, I mean, how does a person determine culture? Culture is obviously such an important fit, and people stay and go and really try to evaluate that. I mean, the values are posted on websites many times, but how do you recommend people really get a feel for what the culture of a place is where they're interviewing?
Yeah, I have a friend who owns several businesses, and one of the things that he does is he will bring people in for a job shadow before they get hired, so they can experience what it's like to work with that person, and so that person can experience what it's like to work within the culture. And it actually works very well for him. In fact, another thing he does, which is very interesting and unique, is he will bring candidates in for group interviews. So if they're considering 5 candidates, they'll bring them all in on the same day together. They can all see one another. They go through the day together. They're experiencing it together. And at the end of the day, they sit down with the people and ask them what they thought, and do you see yourself working here? And then they interview their team and say, how did you like working with this person? Is this somebody you think would be a good fit on our team? So that works really well for him. But, that's one way, is just job shadowing. Another thing is, if you know people working in the organization, you can ask them what it's like to work there.
That's great. That's really very interesting. Before we jump in with some more questions, is anyone, here we go. Celeste, you want to jump in with your question?
Sure. Does age affect the job search process? Is being older a disadvantage to making a move these days?
That's a great question.
That's a challenging question. I think it depends on the organization, because a lot of organizations, do value people that have experience, and I think it depends on. I would say, of course, companies they can't discriminate, but we all know that sometimes they do. But I think it's just a matter of finding the right company and the right environment. But I would sell experience is what I would sell. When you're looking for a position, is just experience. And I have a candidate I'm working with right now, and I was talking to him yesterday. He told me he's got 5 years left, and then he wants to retire. And he said, I'm not focused on title. I'm not focused on making the most compensation. I just want to pass along my knowledge. So that's what I shared with the company. I said, this is somebody that has a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience in the industry, and he wants to mentor and train and give back to some of the people that are up and coming. And that set really well with the company, and they're going to interview him next week. So I would focus on the value that you bring.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I like
very,
that positioning. That's a good one,
that is very interesting.
So we've got some younger people we've got some older people here on the call too, but I see some younger faces. So from the perspective of,
Thank you for acknowledging us.
But from that perspective, hello, obviously, you're on the younger end of things too. What kinds of questions, what do you have with regard to the decision-making process? I mean, to put you on the spot, hello.
Hi. Hello. Well, I'm job searching right now, and I feel like I've been job searching since I graduated, honestly, like 2.5 or 3 years. Which my main struggle being a younger generation is that I feel like the older generation, because they're the ones typically interviewing us, get frustrated because we want work-life balance, and that is equated to being lazy sometimes. And I just think it's the generational differences. The millennials were just raised as we want you to enjoy your life and do something meaningful, do what you love, be passionate. That was what our brains got programmed to think. Whereas my parents were just get a job, you got to take care of shit and like take care of your family. Sorry. But like we were just raised very differently, so I'm just very like aware of the clash now that's occurring with we still want to work, we want to be productive, but we also don't want to be robots. Like not to say that like my parents were robots, but they kind of just were like, we don't have time to think about what we want or what makes us happy. We just need to like do what we need to do in order to be successful, and success was defined differently back then too. So I think it's just I'm finding it difficult to just I'm just showing up as myself, like who I am, and this is what I have to offer. And sometimes I feel like people don't like that. So I'm just finding it difficult in the job market right now too. So if the older generation is finding it difficult, don't worry, because like the millennials are finding it difficult too. And I don't really know. I am still just like searching. And like Stacy said, I am super open to opportunities. So I'm not like closing a door just because my mind immediately wants to say like, no, this doesn't feel right. I'm kind of just like going through it and just being like, well, just be open to it, because you just never know what might happen.
So what I think is interesting is you're being very open. You're looking for career opportunities, but Emmanuel's got a question on here that I think all of us are, how do you let people know you're interested? And then how do you play that between the politics of you don't want your current employer, you want to be careful, but you need people to know you're looking, or, on the other side, where Halal is, where I'm looking. So how do you handle that?
Yeah. So you have to be very discreet about it. You can't hang a sign on the back of your desk saying, I'm open to opportunities. But on LinkedIn, you can. There's some kind of a setting on LinkedIn where you can let recruiters know that you're open to opportunities. But I think you just talk to people that you trust. You talk to people in your network that you know are going to protect your confidence and not share it with your current employer, that are willing to help you, people that can help you make connections with other employers. And then, of course, recruiters are working in the strictest of confidence, so you can trust a good recruiter to represent you and not share that with your current employer.
So great. That's really great.
Networking, really. That's part of what the Bridge Club is all about, right? Helping to connect people so that you can network. And, are there other ways though, Stacy, too, that people can network, even outside their industry? Do you have any recommendations for that?
Well, the book Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty by Harvey Mackay, that's a book that I recommend to learn more about networking. But you've heard the saying that your network is your net worth. A lot of it is what you know, but it's who you know too, because the more connections you have, the more opportunities are available to you, because you never know when you're going to be, when you run into somebody or meet someone new, you don't know who's in their network. You don't know who they know that they can introduce you to. So within the industry, conferences, trade shows, outside of the industry, I'd have to think about that a little bit more. Emmanuel, maybe get back to you on that. I know there's, networking groups, Toastmasters, organizations like that. I'm a member of Toastmasters, so I meet people that are just interested in business and bettering their communication skills. But networking can happen anywhere. It can happen at the grocery store. It can happen at the gym. It can happen down the street. Anywhere you go, you're meeting people and talking to them.
That's true. I actually once got a job because I met a guy when I was standing in line at Starbucks. True story.
Oh my goodness.
That's word, obviously, but anyway. Yes.
But Stacy, you had talked with us about the things you shouldn't do or be careful of. You mentioned a story about LinkedIn and someone's resume. And so can you share that? Because I think there's a lot of what also to be very careful about doing when you're job searching.
So I think the example you're referring to is that I sent a candidate. So you want to keep your LinkedIn profile current when you're looking for another job opportunity. I sent a resume to one of our clients for an executive level role within their company, and the resume had a different job and company listed than the LinkedIn profile. And so when I sent the resume to the president of the company, he said, well, where does this person work for? Because he has one company listed on his resume and one on the LinkedIn profile. And I said, well, the one on the resume is the correct one. And he said, well, why doesn't his LinkedIn profile mirror that? So I asked him, and he said, well, I just haven't been on LinkedIn in a number of years. And so the president of this company said, well, then I don't want to interview him because he's not current with technology. He's not up on technology. And if he was, he would keep, and I still run into candidates on a daily basis who are not on LinkedIn. The first thing employers do is they go online, they look for the person on LinkedIn, they want to look at their profile to see what they've been doing. So I always recommend keeping your LinkedIn profile current.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that we shouldn't also do? I mean, that's typos in resumes, I think, are basic, but what else shouldn't we do or be making sure that we are careful about?
Yes. So when you're interviewing for a position, it is a two-way street. It has to be a win-win for both parties, both the company that's hiring and the person that's looking for a position. And, it's interesting, just segueing back to what we were talking about earlier with the different generations that, people in this generation are used to, working themselves to death. And another generation, they want more of a balance. And you have to look at it from both sides' perspective. You have to look at it from the hiring company's perspective and the candidate's perspective. And I have these conversations all day long with employers who say, I just can't find anybody to work. I can't find anybody that wants to work because everybody's looking for that balance. I can't get anybody to work Saturdays, and nobody wants to work weekends, and nobody wants to work evenings. But going back to the question that Catherine asked, when you're looking for a position, don't make it about you. Make it about the employer. Because I get resumes that say, I'm looking for this. I'm not looking for that. When you're applying for a position, the company is creating the position because they have a need that they need this person to fill, and you want to be the solution to that need and solve their problem. So if your resume is saying what you will and what you won't do before you've even had an opportunity to go interview, the company might rule you out. For example, if you put an objective statement on your resume and you say, I'm very specifically, my objective is to find this certain position, and the company doesn't have an opening for that position, but maybe they had an opening that would fit your qualifications with a different title, they may not consider you because they think you're only looking for this specific position. So that's why I recommend to put an executive summary or professional summary at the top of the resume and not an objective statement. But don't go into the interview saying, this is what I want. Go into the interview trying to solve the employer's problem. And then when you get to the negotiation stage where you both want to work together, that's when you work out those details on scheduling and compensation and benefits. But I think too many people at the beginning of the interview process try to negotiate things like their compensation and these other things before they know that it's a good fit for both parties.
Yeah.
Good point. Really good point.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be a little bit watchful of our time here. We promised
I was just about ready to
discussions. However, Stacy has said she has a few more minutes. So if anybody has more questions, would like to continue the discussion, we can stay on for a little bit and talk further. And if there are those of you who have to log off because you've got to be somewhere else or have other arrangements or are just ready to be done, you can certainly log off now too quietly, and that will be certainly fine. And feel free to post any last minute questions as well that Stacy can answer after the fact. So we really appreciate everybody's participation here. I will say that now, and feel free to stay on and post a couple more questions.
All right.
I just would add one thing. My daughter had this happen at her company. Someone started actively updating their LinkedIn profile, and they had the setting so that others could see when they made updates to their LinkedIn profile because they were looking for a job, and they were outed by their HR department. So you are going to see updates to your LinkedIn profile. Check your settings so that you can do those without them being broadcast to your network of, that you're making updates, because they do watch.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Celeste, the other thing I recommend is when you're looking for a job, use your personal email address, not your company's email address. And I have some candidates that are just very laid back. Oh, you can send it to my company's email. But I was reading an article yesterday. Companies are monitoring those things. They're looking to see if people are looking for jobs, especially big companies. So don't use your company's email. And like Celeste was saying with LinkedIn, also, if you're looking for a job, don't start connecting with the people at the company that you're interviewing with. Wait until you get the job and you've accepted it to connect, because even if it's even if you're set to private with those settings, people can still see these connections that you have in common, and it's best to wait until you've made the move to start connecting with these people.
Tricky.
It is very tricky. So this may be out of your purview, but when you bring up the fact that they're watching and they're paying attention and it could put someone alerted, that puts more of the kind of secrecy component. But wouldn't an employer, if an employer looks at it and says, then that person's unhappy, I should be investing in that person, but I get the feeling something opposite is happening.
Well, that was the article that I was reading was talking about that. It's companies looking for people that are trying to leave that they want to hang on to. So there's actually consulting companies that companies hire to help them identify when somebody's at risk for leaving. And so if the company doesn't want them to leave, then they start doing things to proactively try to get the person to stay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. It's a dual-edged sword though, because if they also were like, good, she's looking.
Yeah. then you don't intervene.
yeah, don't intervene. Everyone let her be. But that is kind of an interesting, it's scary though, right? If everyone's looking at and that there's actual companies out there helping with that. So, but how does someone find a recruiter? So talk to me, I know when I was in a position and I was looking, I was like, I just need a recruiter to help me and get me that job. Is that how this works? I'm sure it's not.
So the best way is to talk to people in your network that have used a recruiter and find out who they would recommend. And then it's best to find somebody who specializes in your area of expertise. So if you are working in the accounting world, for example, you would want to find a recruiter that specializes in placing accountants and has a long history of doing so. If you're a veterinarian, for example, you'd want to find a recruiter that specializes in placing veterinarians. There are some recruiters that are generalists that work in a variety of different industries, but they're not going to have a deep network in any particular industry. So it's better to find one that's a specialist. And I'd recommend just asking friends and colleagues for referrals.
No, it's good. That's really good.
Yeah, it was Catherine and I were really excited that Stacy agreed to do this because we think the whole job search process at any age and in any position in your career is really difficult. And it seems like it's full of a lot of black holes and you don't know who you can trust and what kinds of questions to ask and how you're being judged. And with social media being such a big part of the job search these days, that raises even more questions, what you should and shouldn't do. So we were really excited to have this should I stay or should I go conversation and see where it leads. I think there's a lot more information to mine here. So you guys can watch for Stacy to recur on our programming because there's so much that I think we all can learn from someone who has our years of expertise. And even if we're not looking for a job, it's just some good common sense that we can pass along to people we know who are.
Absolutely.
We should always be open to opportunities. You never know when a job can come along. It could come along, like I said, inside your organization, in another organization, but things usually come along when you're least expecting them to, not when you're always looking for something.
Yeah. Well, thank you to everybody for joining us.
Yeah.
Any
Thank
last
you.
questions? Anything else before we log off? All good?
Fantastic.
All
Thank
right,
you,
well,
guys.
Thank you. Everybody coming and hope to see you again on another Bridge Club conversation soon.
Great.
Good
Thank you.
to see
Sounds great.
everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank
All right.
you.
Have a good afternoon.
Okay. Bye.
I'm going to, okay. So everyone.